The free agency frenzy, or as NFL Network likes to call it, has begun. Javon Hargrave in, Sam Darnold in, Jimmy Garoppolo and Mike McGlinchey out, Jason Aponte, Andrew Pasquini. Spirit Red Option Podcast starts now.
Welcome, everybody.
We are live.
My name is Jason Aponte.
I am Andrew Pasquini.
We're working. That's it. We're working over here. That's it. Let's go Niners.
Let's go Niners. Sprint Ride Option Podcast. Oh, man. One of the most exciting days of the year, the day where we can legally tamper with people, the day we can agree to contracts, but they can't be official until Wednesday, Jason Aponte. I am Andrew Pasquini, as I mentioned, joined as always by Jason Aponte, a man that I would personally sign to a 4-year, $84 million deal on a new Sprint Ride Option Podcast. Jason Aponte, how are you doing on, I guess, new league year Eve's Eve? There we go. We got it.
Yeah, the legal tampering thing it feels like it still should be illegal because tampering is still such a bad word, but whatever. That's how the league phrases it. But shout out to the NFL, man. I think we really understate how there is no offseason and how the NFL is a year-round thing and how they make every single thing an event. Mm-hmm. And today, within a few hours of the legal tampering period, we got a flurry of deals. Tons of teams have been making moves. I feel like the Bears and the Falcons improved their teams probably the most in one day. And, yeah, of course, the 49ers, a lot of people thought that John Lynch was going to sit in his hands. I don't know where that really came from because when you really look back at the way the 49ers have done business, the first day, Malcolm Smith, Quan Alexander, Jet McKinnon, they don't really stand still, and they gave those guys money. Charvarius Ward, so for everybody who's like, oh, they never really are aggressive, well, I don't even really know if that's true. I think that when you look at the history, the first day, usually they're all in and they get the guy that they had been targeting.
Yeah, and I kind of Jedi mind tricked myself because I think the history of John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan, they've told you so many times, hey, we're a team that builds in outwards. We focus on the defensive line. We focus on the offensive line. This is a team, and something I'll always go back to, broke an NFL record for fewest interceptions in a season with 2. And the next year, they didn't add anybody to the secondary. They added a pass rush. And what happened? They make the Super Bowl because of that pass rush. I Jedi mind tricked myself into saying maybe Jesse Bates is the guy. Maybe the big money spending is Mike McGlinchey. The answer was always defensive lineman, no matter how much I thought it wasn't going to be. I didn't think it was going to be Javon. I kind of gave up on Javon Hargrave. That felt like too big of a name for me. I thought the Eagles were going to be able to retain him. They did not. Spoiler, Jason Aponte, and that's really the big news story of the day, and we'll dive into it. San Francisco 49ers, they make their big splash move. They signed defensive tackle Javon Hargrave, a 4-year, $84 million deal, a little bit above what his projected market by Sportrack had for him. And really, for the first time since DeForest Buckner, the 49ers have a pass rushing defensive tackle. And from a schematic standpoint, there is nobody I would rather go to if I can't go to Rich Madrid than Jason Aponte. And Jason, I don't know if that was mean or not. I wanted to run with it. We ran with it. Jason Aponte, from a schematic standpoint, how much better does I think people hear pass rusher defensive tackle, and they know the Niners defensive line is predicated on the pass rush. Just how much better does Javon Hargrave make the 49ers pass rush with just this one move?
Incredibly better. I mean, bull rush, speed rush, a bevy of moves that he has. He's going to have a lot of one-on-one opportunities because you can't double him. You double him, you're going to leave Armstead. You're going to leave Bosa. It's perfect. It's just perfect. And the 49ers realize that, a lot of people always want, well, okay, quarterback. Okay, well, the only thing that can really afford this move for you is the fact that you are paying nothing to Trey Lance and Brock Purdy, and you're able to load up the defense. I think, again, we've said it. The offense is fine. Ayuk, Samuel, Kittle, McCaffrey, fine. You don't need to add weapons to that, right? You're gonna need your offensive line, who Jake Brendel now has a market, as I thought he would. I don't think he's coming back. No. And obviously Mike McGlinchey left, and it feels like Colin McKivitz is going to take his spot. But the 49ers had to improve at that defensive tackle position because of how the Eagles whipped them in that game. You know, Javon Kinlaw struggled in that game, and they ran right at him, and they literally not only add to their team, but soften the Philadelphia Eagles. It's a win-win-win. Schematically, this is what you kind of thought it would be if DeForest Buckner was here. It's the same exact deal as DeForest Buckner, which is interesting. And I kind of wanted to talk about that a little bit because people are very upset. Even DeForest Buckner said it's kind of funny that he got that deal and it's the same deal. But I do think that, one, you can be upset with the process in terms of getting rid of DeForest Buckner and trying to replace him with Javon Kinlaw. But I think the circumstances now with the money that would be available, the cap going up, and this first year of this Hargrave deal is not going to be hard on the cap. That's why people are saying, well, can you extend Bosa? You can. You can still do that because the first year's cap number isn't going to be high. So I understand the people that are upset saying, man, you could have just kept Buckner and we could have avoided all of this, you know, okay, but that cap number wasn't as high. They had a lot more constraints towards the cap. They also didn't have two cheap quarterbacks, and they also didn't have a cap increase in sight. So the Javon Hargrave thing, it's a perfect storm of circumstances that got him the bag that DeForest Buckner got. So I just wanted to clear that up because I did see there was a little bit of discourse about, well, you could have just kept Buckner. I don't think those numbers would have worked with that cap, with that situation. It had to happen in this way for them to land Hargrave, who's 30 years old.
Yeah, and to your point of just the situations being different, when the 49ers traded when they traded DeForest Buckner, Jimmy Garoppolo's contract, his cap hit from 2019 to 2021 was anywhere from that $21 to $27 million number. The two quarterbacks on the roster, and I say two quarterbacks because there is a third one that we got to find out. I haven't seen numbers on that, but we'll talk about him in a minute. The two quarterbacks on the roster right now, and Trey Lance and Brock Purdy, are combined like $10 million in cap space. So that's like the first big difference between it all is, Jason said it, is you have two quarterbacks on very manageable contracts as opposed to Jimmy Garoppolo, who in 2018, his cap number was what, like $37 million. So that's really the first place. Things change too. I mean, this is a defense that we've talked about the defensive line for years. And we've sat here and we talked about the Moneyball thing. I mentioned it in an article a couple days ago on NinersNation.com. Is defensive line is a position they've really moneyballed the heck out of since DeForest Buckner, because you have Javon Kinlaw, you have Charles Omenihu, you have Samson Ebukam, Arden Key, Kerry Hunter. I could just list all the defensive. They haven't made a splash signing, and it could be just the realization of maybe it's time to make that splash signing on the defensive line. So like a lot has changed in the 4 years since Eric Armstead has been gone. And I think this signing shows that the 49ers needing a splash. They go get Javon Kinlaw, or not Javon. God, I keep calling him Javon Kinlaw. It's Javon Hargrave. That's going to throw me off that they have two Javons on the defensive line, but we'll get there. Hey, it is hour 7. Well, yeah, that's the other thing is I don't know if
I don't think you're gonna have to deal with that for too much longer.
So yes. I guess that's the other side of it. Jason Aponte, Sam Monson had a tweet of PFF earlier today. 49ers defensive linemen combined for 88 total pressures, 8 different players. Hargrave had 66 himself. Yeah, there's a lot of stats that you can pull up. 66 pressures, was second on the Eagles behind Reddick. He had 11 sacks, tied for second on the Eagles behind Reddick. He was the highest PFF pass rush grade on the Eagles, 91.1, and the third highest graded PFF pass rusher for a defensive lineman behind Dexter Lawrence and Chris Jones. And I know, Jason Aponte, what we say about PFF grades, it only works with my narrative. I'm very excited for Javon Hargrave. There we go, got the name right this time, Jason Aponte. So PFF grades are very much relevant in my argument.
And I think the one thing that really, really sticks out is his durability. He doesn't miss games. And of course, me saying that now is going to change the way that he has been, but he certainly is durable, somebody they can count on over and over. If this team is going to they don't have question marks at quarterback, right? We're going to have to figure out the timeline and all that stuff. And if you're going to do that, then you have to
question the quarterback for me.
Right. You have to improve the defense. And having someone who's reliable to do that takes the pressure off of Bosa. Now the defensive line is really going to come down to, can you bring back Omenihu? Maybe can you get Arden Key again,
Mhm.
right? Like that seems like
Mhm.
something. Does Drake Jackson take that leap? Can you bring back Jordan Willis, who's rotational as well too?
Mhm.
Kevin Gibbons was signed today as well too. That's a really good thing as well too at defensive tackle. So the 49ers, they have turned something that wasn't consistent into an absolute strength.
Yep.
With now, obviously Kinlaw's still on the roster, but I do think that this is kind of your signal, and it's not so subtle that they're just not happy with what they're getting, obviously based on health. But the 49ers still have a little bit to do. And I think that's where my shock with the second big move of the day came, because Tim Kawakami says the 49ers are not done. I'm expecting to get a notification for another impact player. So when I reacted and I said, what the hell, on Twitter with Sam Darnold, I understand exactly what they were doing. It's just when you hear Kawakami say they're not done, you think it's another impact player, and then it's Sam Darnold. I mean, we don't have to talk about that right now, but either way, the 49ers have more work to do on the defensive line. You bring in Arden Key, maybe you bring back Omenihu, you hope for that jump with Jackson. Gibbons is back as well, who can be a rotational guy at defensive tackle. And now you're cooking, and now you're set at linebacker. Tashawn Gibson's back. You're set in your secondary at this point. Maybe Emmanuel Mosley's back as well too, or maybe you make a move in the secondary and you sign someone else that's out there. But right now, everything is kind of going the right way. The 49ers are addressing things, and you can take defensive tackle off the list in the draft. That's another thing that I think is important. Now you can really focus in on secondary guys, offensive linemen, and maybe a skill position guy or safety. So, like, again, it just makes it easier in the draft to address things now that you've addressed this part right here.
Javon Hargrave was the 89th overall pick in the 2016 draft. To Jason Aponte's point of durability, since 2016, his games played in order have been 15, 16, 16, 16, 15, 16, 17. So the most he's missed in a season is one game. Obviously, knock on wood. It is March. I'm not too worried about injuries right now, so I'm not going to knock on wood. We'll reactively knock on wood in September when we get closer to that kind of stuff. But yeah, he's durable, and that's something this defense has needed. The base defensive line for the 49ers as of this second with who's on the roster, and then this is very irrelevant because the Niners don't really base too often, but it's left to right off the top of my head: Drake Jackson, Hargrave, Eric Armstead, Nick Bosa. That's not a very bad place to start. And you could definitely bring back Omenihu. You can bring back Jordan Willis is a sneaky one that I think they should bring back. Or you could bring back Arden Key, somebody they've talked to. In my head, you mentioned the Kawakami tweet about some big move. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a trade of Bruin. And I don't know what it would be. This is just Andrew speculation because I don't have if I ever act like I have sources, yell at me, Jason, because I don't have sources. This is just me speculating, talking aloud that maybe a big trade is coming. They have 11 draft picks. They have 3 third-round picks. Maybe they use something for that because, I mean, you look at, and I don't want to obviously say this as players are cheap now, but like the Dolphins got Jalen Ramsey for a third and a backup tight end. Some player values are lower than what you think it is. And who knows? Maybe 2/3 can get you something worth it,
And Miami had to eat that salary as well, too. That kind of helps you with the compensation. I still think they could have gotten more. But yeah, that's the reason for that.
Yeah, so we'll see. I don't know. I don't know what the big move is, or if the big move was Sam Darnold, which we'll talk about here in a second. I have a hard time believing it is, but then again, it's the quarterback position in 2023. I guess in theory it is a big move because the Niners have a new quarterback, which I guess, I don't know. Do you have anything on Hargrave? That I kind of feel good about what we said and everything that was said.
Man, this defense is nasty. I mean, they're just
Yeah.
gonna get better. I mean, Steve Wilkes is. I mean, you're gonna start with your single high. You're gonna move over to that a little bit more. But when that pass rush is getting home, your secondary doesn't need to cover for very long. So it's an exciting time. And for the people that want a splash signing, there you go. And I think that again, you're set on offense. You have all your weapons. You're good. And now on defense, you're finally you might find a way to get better than last year, which is very, very hard to imagine. So yeah, I mean, you're set at linebacker, your secondary seems to be taking form. Maybe you bring back Emmanuel Mosley, that would be huge. And then you have this defensive line, which I don't think they're done adding to, that is going to get after the passer. This is a very exciting time. And then when you look around the NFC, Aaron Rodgers seems like he's on his way out. The Rams are completely folding. The Cardinals aren't good. Seattle is good, but it feels like it's just Philly and the Niners, and Philly's losing players left and right. They lost Marcus Epps today. They lost Hargrave. They let CJ Gardner Johnson go. CJ Gardner Johnson go. Like it's starting to take shape that all the talent is going to the AFC, and the 49ers will basically just need baseline competent quarterback play to win games because his defense is going to be so good. And on top of it, the NFC is very weak. The Vikings are selling everyone. The entire NFC is now thinning out, and all the 49ers just did was get better. It's an exciting time, and 49er fans should be excited.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and you really too, just to look at the NFC West and like who, and this is a March conversation, Jason Aponte, but who's better than them in the NFC West? And I think it's pretty obviously nobody. So Javon Hargrave, very exciting, very exciting. The Niners made a second move today. Sam Darnold, maybe a year late, maybe 2 years late, I don't know. But Sam Darnold signed with the Niners, a 1-year deal. I haven't seen money on this deal yet.
I think it's 2.94 for the 1 year.
2.94. Okay, we'll run with that. But yeah, 1-year deal for Sam Darnold. I think it's interesting, to say the least, because we talked about on Friday on the podcast, Jason Aponte, that Purdy's elbow injury, the surgery, his timeline, maybe September, maybe October. The Niners don't need to go out and get an NFL proven guy for quarterback 3. You draft one, see what happens. So I like to be that asshole who likes to ask these kind of questions. And I'll ask it to Jason Aponte because I can't think of anybody better to ask it to. Was Sam Darnold brought in to compete with Trey Lance, or is this Trey Lance's job? I'll be the guy to ask the question because I think a lot of people are thinking it. I don't know if anybody wants to ask it. I'll be the guy to ask the question. Jason Aponte, is Darnold in competition, or is this Lance's job?
It's got to be Lance's job. I mean, if Lance has trouble beating out Sam Darnold with everything that they've invested, if Sam Darnold goes out there and outplays him in training camp, I think that would be a larger statement to where Trey Lance is as far as his development. But how I view this is the 49ers Geno Smith attempt, right? Seattle recouped Geno Smith, and they just brought him along and had him there, and they got what they got from him, and they saw improvement. I think Kyle Shanahan's always been enamored with Sam Darnold's tools. And, he has those splashy plays and he has those throws and you're like, wow, there they are. Just not a lot of consistency. But if you look at last year, the Carolina Panthers early in the year were throwing the ball down the field, and he was not good throwing the ball down the field. When they cut it down and they started making him throw the ball more intermediate, he was playing better with DJ Moore and those guys. So who better to throw a reclamation project, a guy with tools like this, than to Kyle Shanahan? So I do think the 49ers are just, right now, they've got a guy that if Preston Aduti has experience, can work in this offense. I mean, he can't be any worse than like CJ Beathard, Brian Hoyer, any of those guys, I don't think. And also, if you're able to tap into some of that potential and kind of transform him a little bit more, now you're really talking about value, and now you can really, really start thinking about, okay, move this guy if you're confident with just Purdy and Lance. But I think it boils down to, after watching the 49ers go down with Josh Johnson as their third quarterback, and it seems like the 49ers have been pushing this third quarterback rule, Sam Darnold is certainly an upgrade over Josh Johnson. So I think it's a combination of all those things. I do think that Kyle Shanahan loves him. When Kyle has his eyes on his guy, he's never going to let it go. They were sniffing around Darnold. There was a report that the 49ers offered a first for Darnold, and the Jets turned it down. But I do think it's a little bit of, you have an NFL experienced third quarterback, probably the best one in the league if you're talking about third quarterbacks go. But you're also kind of just seeing, hey, can we tap into some of this potential? And if we do, then we've really, really got an asset that we can either trade, move, or just insulate ourselves, like John Lynch was talking about. When I asked him about veteran quarterback, I really, really didn't think it was going to be Sam Darnold, but here we are. And I think it's more just a combination of those things.
Well, yeah, and you mentioned it too. This isn't the first time the Niners have attempted to take the Sam Darnold train. They kicked the tires on him, at least reportedly, a couple of years ago in the free agency where they drafted Trey Lance. So this isn't or not free agency, would have had to be in trade with the Jets. They kicked the tires on that. They get their guy. I don't know, like, how do you want me to spin it? Because his numbers aren't great, obviously, right? 61 career touchdowns, 55 career interceptions. I mean, quarterback wins, losses. We legally don't have to talk about those anymore because Jimmy Garoppolo is not on this team anymore. 21 and 34 in his career. Not that it matters. So I guess the one positive is he had a career low 2.1 interception percentage last season in 6 games. The Panthers went 4-2 in games he played. And oh, by the way, who was his head coach in those 6 games he played for? Oh, that was right. Steve Wilkes, who is the Niners defensive coordinator now. So, and obviously I think that's where that tie stops because I don't think Steve Wilkes is doing anything offensively for the 49ers. But you're absolutely right. And I hate the fact that we have to talk about QB3s now because we were tired enough talking about backup quarterbacks just 2 years ago. And now we're having to sit here and talk about QB3s and feeling comfortable where, hey, if he's needed. But yeah, a sentence I never thought I'd have to say. If you need to trust your quarterback 3, there is nobody I'd rather trust more than Sam Darnold. And that's a sentence we can say today because of these circumstances.
March 13th, and if I would have told you last March 13th that next year at this time, your only fully cleared, healthy quarterback on your roster, 49ers fans, would be Samuel Darnold. And it's just as the world turns for the 49ers quarterback position. But yeah, again, I think the signing kind of tells you, yes, you have a guy who's experienced, but we want to take a chance and see if we can, develop him a little bit more and see if you get something from him. It's low risk, high reward, right? $2 million is nothing. It's a drop in the bucket. Even with all 3 salaries together, it comes to about $15 million. Think about what James Richard Garoppolo just signed to be the only quarterback in that room, and then you have to add a backup. I mean, that's peanuts. I mean, the starting quarterback in this league goes for 20, 24, 25, $30 million, like easy. So again, the 49ers just doing what they can right now. They obviously believe that the timeline with Purdy is going to be 6 months, but you do kind of put yourself in a position where it's like, hey, let's take a chance on this kid. Maybe he has a Geno Smith revival. Maybe we can get something for him in this case. So Nicholas, thank you for the donation. He says, what's up, guys? Do you see this as a threat to Lance? I don't. Some people think this means Lance might get traded. I think we kind of just answered that. I don't think it's a threat. I think that, again, it's a guy who has experience. Kyle loves his guys. Then he thinks that he can, get those traits out of him and again, and kind of develop him. And as I said earlier, last year with the Panthers, he threw the ball down the field a lot early during the year. It didn't work. And then when he was reinserted into the lineup and they started to cook up the intermediate game for him, Ben McAdoo was giving him more intermediate throws to DJ Moore. If you notice, there was an uptick in DJ Moore's production. It was because Sam Darnold played largely well, and a lot of that had to do with him not taking as many chances, having open, defined reads. And I don't know if there's a better offense for that than the 49ers at this point. So if he is pushed into service, you don't feel as bad because he's loaded with talent. He's got Kyle Shanahan, and Kyle's made worse quarterbacks look better, I believe.
Yeah, and I don't see it as a threat to Lance at all, but it does teeter into that territory of Sam Darnold feels like a guy who's going to push Lance a little bit because it's not like it's a 7th round quarterback. It does at the bare minimum. It gives this illusion of, hey, Trey Lance, if you don't perform in camp, we do have a guy who has NFL starting experience that we have no problem going to. Actually, we've looked at him since before you're on this team. So I think that is at most what it's going to be. I do not think that Trey Lance is at risk as of March 13th to lose quarterback 1. But we'll see what August looks like. And I don't think that changes in August either. But it might. And so we'll see. But yeah, Trey Lance is QB1 as of this second, so we'll see what it means. Hey, Jason Aponte, you know who is not quarterback 1 anymore? And it's a sentence that I think maybe since the start of this podcast we have been waiting to say. Jimmy Garoppolo is no longer on the San Francisco 49ers. And it has nothing to do with his performance. I think the conversation about Jimmy Garoppolo got very played out, and Jason and I were very tired of talking about it. He is a Las Vegas Raider. Jason Aponte said that. 3-year deal, $67.5 million, 34.5 guaranteed. I have thoughts. I don't think those thoughts are fully developed yet. I think it's I don't want to say it's a bummer because obviously it's not a bummer. The Niners obviously moved on from Jimmy Garoppolo. It was an era of 49ers football there. I think that's the best way to say it. It was an era of 49ers football. It depends who you ask. Was it good or was it bad? I think the right answer is it was a good era because I don't know how many eras in my life I can say the Niners went to 3 of 4 NFC. Actually, I can tell you there's one other era in my life where they went to 3 of 4 NFC championship games. But it was a move that needed to be done. I think the Raiders, dare I say, upgraded at quarterback, but not, I don't know, because like I don't want to get into the argument of Derek Carr versus Jimmy Garoppolo. But what I do know is Derek Carr very much wore out his welcome in Vegas, and Jimmy Garoppolo was a locker room guy. So it feels like maybe a change of culture the Raiders could use, which is why I say he's an upgrade. And Josh McDaniels got his guy. I don't care what it does for the Raiders personally, Jason Aponte. This is a 49ers podcast. So I'll let you take the Jimmy Garoppolo conversation where you want to take it. But it does end an era. 6 years. He was the first quarterback who really gave you hope since Kaepernick, Alex Smith, Jim Harbaugh. And I think he paid off more often than he didn't, in my opinion, but I could see other people saying otherwise. Dare I say, he very polarizing character, Jason Aponte, is that Jimmy Garoppolo.
Seems like the quarterback position is always going to be like that in terms of the San Francisco 49ers and how the fans discuss it. I mean, for God's sakes, the Joe and Steve stuff, back then, the same thing with Garcia, with Cap, with Alex Smith. It just goes down the list of when you play, it's a landmark position in sports, right? San Francisco 49ers quarterback, shortstop for the New York Yankees, like point guard for the Lakers, like landmark positions in football, in all of sports. And the Jimmy Garoppolo stuff, it really was a bit at times strange. Mm-hmm. I am so happy for him. I wish him nothing but the best. Goes to a place where Josh McDaniels was ready to turn this offense over to him initially when Tom Brady was ready to go. I mean, he won a ton of games while he was here. And, obviously they didn't get it done. I don't think he was the reason they didn't get it done. I think you can look at many things, particularly the Super Bowl. I think that the people forget how down bad 49ers fans were before he got here and he won those first 5 games. And we all kind of felt like, okay, he looks the part, right? He looks just like the guy. He's dressed well. He's those NFL films videos of him against Tennessee and telling Trent Taylor, hey, don't turn your head too quickly because when you slip him, I'm going to throw it on you. Like, and he's leading a team, like, and he looks like the guy. The 49ers obviously improved. They get Nick Bosa after 2018 when he tears his ACL. But, I wish the guy well, man. I have very fond memories of certain games. I do think that, like, people are always going to throw, the Emmanuel Sanders throw, the stepping out of bounds, all those things, fine. Okay. But for me, I want to say that probably my fondest Jimmy memory, everybody's going to bring the Saints game up, and that was an electric game, and I understand why. But I do think that my favorite Jimmy game was Week 18 against the Rams last year, man. I mean, being injured, being down, and then all of a sudden just pulling that team back. And then that throw that I posted yesterday of him to Deebo Samuel where Jalen Ramsey's diving and the ball's out of his hands, like just by a little bit, and they go down and they score and then they win in overtime. The guy was injured. We all thought Trey Lance was going to have to play again. I just think, listen, it's gotten to a point where, again, what we disliked about this conversation was you have the stands and you have the people that think he's terrible. The real answer is somewhere in the middle, and that's where Jimmy Garoppolo is as a quarterback. After the 5 to 8 guys in this league that are elite, all of them week to week can be better, right? So if you want to say Carr's better than Jimmy, I'll say because of health reasons, probably. Yeah. I mean, he plays more. That's the thing. I think that's part of the frustration with 49ers fans. But week to week, 1 week, Jimmy will play better than Carr. 1 week, Cousins will play better than both. 1 week, Carr will play better than all 3. So they're all in that same tier. Did the Raiders improve? That depends on the week, depends on who they're playing, and I think it's all kind of the same thing. But for me, I'm happy that it's kind of over at this point. I'm happy that he has a resolution. He can move on. That was kind of where I was with it when I wanted Trey Lance to start in the beginning, is I just want him to move on. He talked about that 1 year with Trey being there was like the hardest thing he had to do. And then for him to come back last year, get injured again, I'm happy that he gets another chance somewhere else. And now he doesn't have to worry about somebody over his shoulder at this point.
Yeah, and I think my game for Jimmy Garoppolo that I think of is Saints in 2019. Because that's the one that you can. I know Drew Brees in 2019 wasn't Drew Brees in previous years, but to say in a game where the Niners needed to win because they needed to win because if they don't win that game, they're not the number one seed in the NFC. They don't have home field. Maybe that whole playoff run looks different. To say he outdueled Drew Brees in the Superdome, and in the play, obviously, with George Kittle and all that, I think that's the game for me. But yeah, obviously, I think our good luck extends to Jimmy Garoppolo. Maybe not so much to the Raiders because we're Niner fans and the Raiders.
That doesn't bother me.
Oh, it doesn't bother me. Okay, cool. I'll say it too. I don't care. I hope the Raiders do fine with Jimmy Garoppolo.
They're not even from the Bay anymore. You guys got to let that go.
And really quick, I see this question from Jay Aguayo. I just want to throw this out. It looks like some contract details came out for Hargrave. Aaron Wilson tweeting 49ers Hargrave, 4 years, $84 million, $40 million guaranteed, $23 million signing bonus, up to $750,000 annual per game active roster bonuses. And then David Lombardi threw out the very interesting one. He just tweeted not 5 minutes or 10 minutes ago. Hargrave's salary cap number for the 49ers this season is projected to be $6.6 million.
That's why.
Intense financial gymnastics from Parag Marathi to shrink the $21 million API or APY to under $6 million in the cap constraint 2023. So that makes things significantly easier because the Niners have to get to that zero number for 2023 by Wednesday at 1 p.m. And getting a $21 million APY to under $6 million is pretty impressive. I know this podcast isn't as fond on the let Parag cook narrative, but this one pretty solid. We'll see what it looks like in future years because obviously that money has to go somewhere else. So we'll see. Hey, Jay Aguayo, thank you for the donation. Do you think we draft a defensive tackle or edge or both? I think both is the easy answer. 11 picks. Get extra depth. Maybe defensive tackle changes a little bit, but I could see them taking a flyer on a defensive tackle later in the draft.
Yeah, there's a few guys that can play both. So I think that's kind of where they're going to go with it. It's always going to be in the trenches. That's always going to be where they start. I think you'll see a less onus of like defensive tackles only. And I do think that you'll see them take another shot on edge as they always do. So I do think that trade changes that a little bit. So, and that kind of goes back to the point that I was talking about, Andrew. Is people are like, well, what do we do with Bosa? You can sign Bosa to the extension. The first year cap hit is not going to be big. It's when that money really kicks in and how it's structured. You know, there's still some restructures that can be done. Trent Williams, Eric Armstead, Mooney Ward. Like, you literally have money that you can mess around with. So I do think the 49ers have their plan, and they should be fine again when it comes to how they're going to do this. You know, Deshaun Gibson comes back for nothing. Kevin Gibbons, same thing, comes back for nothing. So, amazing start. For this at this point. And then our Davis Niner Gang says, do we cut Kinlaw or does he fall into a rotational player? I don't think he's going to get cut. I do think that it's already kind of been reported that he's on the block. I don't know what you can get for Javon Kinlaw at this point. I don't know if you just necessarily give him away for a fifth rounder or something like that. I think it all depends on what they're offered, what they can get, what they see from him. And if he does become a rotational player, that's fine. I mean, it just only bolsters this defense and it gives you more depth, just in case something happens. So I'm fine with that as a rotational player, but I do think the writing's on the wall that the team is not happy with his production or him staying on the field, which is why they felt the need to make this move. So I think it's going to be give and take, and it really depends on what they can fetch on the open market for Kinlaw. And if they can't get anything, then you know what? You stick around and they'll decline his fifth-year option, and then, someone else will try to sign him. I just don't think they're going to cut him and give him away. I don't think that's a possibility.
Zach Allen to the Broncos just came across while you were talking.
No.
I know he's somebody you like, Jason.
I loved him.
Eric Hendricks to the Chargers as well. I think the easiest answer for the trade that'll never happen in a million years is just call up Denver and be like, hey, Javon Kinlaw for Jerry Jeudy will undo what we should have done in 2020 and draft Jeudy instead of Kinlaw. But that's just me being salty. I think they throw the feelers out there. I think I mean, it really comes down to how much they don't like him because because I don't think there's cap savings to cut him. I think he has the same dead cap as salary this year, I believe, right? Is that something I'm making up? I could be making it up. I could see them trying to trade him. I'm just going to answer this question by not answering it because I could see a realm of possibilities of them trading him. I could see a realm of possibility of them cutting him. I could see them saying, "Hey, what does it hurt to have the depth on the roster?" Let's see here. His cap number is 4,490,000. Yeah, he has the same dead number. I say keep him. Why not? Just keep him. It's going to cost the same to have him not on the roster and keep the depth. If you can't trade him, if you could trade him, get some assets, you trade him.
And if you cut him, you don't save any money, right? It's still dead
No.
cap, like all that stuff as well too. So you might as well do it. You decline his 5th-year option, you're fine. You've got Hargrave for years and years. So I mean, it's just at this point, I just don't see them cutting someone like that unless there's something else that's going on aside from the health that really is concerning in terms of, I guess off the field stuff, like or the way that he's meshing with the guys in the locker room. But yeah, I don't see them moving him, and it's good to have as much depth as possible. And again, you never know, right? Like, what if Javon Kinlaw finds what they thought they were going to get from him? If he plays a little bit more. I know that's something that we say almost every single year at this point, and it's kind of wearing thin. But I just don't think you make a cut. You cut him like that.
No. Jimmy Garoppolo wasn't the only stalwart of the offense the 49ers lost today. Mike McGlinchey hit the free agency market, and then he was gone. Broncos signing the right tackle to a 5-year, $87.5 million deal, $50 million guaranteed. All I really want to say on this is I've been told Mike McGlinchey is a bad right tackle by 49ers Twitter. Seems like the Denver Broncos don't agree with that assessment. And I'd imagine that there's a few other teams with a contract in the ballpark of this one. So it's almost like the narrative on 49ers Twitter isn't necessarily true league-wide. He goes to a place that probably is going to use him pretty well, especially with Russell Wilson. So, yeah, man, happy for Mike McGlinchey. He got his contract. I think it was obvious he played his time out with San Francisco, to say the least. He gets his money, though, with Denver, so we'll see where he goes from there.
Congrats, Mike. Happy for you, man. Again, if Jimmy Garoppolo is the most polarizing, Mike's probably, I wouldn't say the most polarizing because there aren't so many McGlinchey defenders. Like, there's a few. Like, it's like Brad and like Rich and like 2 other people.
The 2 on this podcast.
Yeah, I mean, I think that what he was here to do, he did. I don't think that there were games that he necessarily like lost them or anything like that. It's just when he made a mistake, it was just magnified. But again, there's 60 snaps in a game. You're going to show the one bad snap, but you're not going to show the 2-3 snaps that actually led to big runs. I never thought Mike was as bad as anybody ever said. Probably not as good as people thought they were getting in the 9th pick, right? Especially when you think about Derwin James. I think that's always been something that's been part of the argument. But good for him, man. And you're starting to see the offensive line market now develop. I mean, Jawan Taylor just signed with the Chiefs. My goodness. Mike McGlinchey's over there with Denver. And then there's talk about, there's talk of the Chiefs trading for Laramie Tunsil. Like, come on, guys. Like, you have to, Goodell, you have to stop this. Don't let this happen, please, man. Do you want to see the Chiefs just go ahead and win every single Super Bowl? Like, don't do this. Don't let this happen, please. But Mike McGlinchey, good for you, man. And good luck the rest of the way. The interesting part for the 49ers now becomes Cole McKivitz, who signed his contract as well. I think he's worth under $3 million, something like that as well too. Now, what do? Do you have someone that you can draft, that you can develop behind him? I wrote an article on Niners Nation about 3 offensive line prospects that could be there. And I mean, it really, really puts the 49ers in a spot now where, what do you do? Is it in-house? And the same thing with center, right? Like, I think that if we were starting today and we were going to training camp, obviously we're not. There's still so much, with the free agency and the draft. Nick Zakel's probably the leader in the house for center and at Cole McKivitz. So now it's like the 49ers have shown Aaron Banks sits a year. Lincoln Tomlinson gets the bag. You fill him in. He plays pretty well. Spencer Burford actually started right from the rip. He's pretty good. I still think the way that you save yourself problems is you've got to bring back Daniel Brunskill just in case one of these guys gets injured or he falls off in play. And I think that's going to be the thing that gives me a little bit more confidence because he's always sitting in the background, ready to just jump in at any of these positions.
Not to bring it back to Hargrave really quick, but OTC dropped the Hargrave contract details. If you want some cap numbers, Jason, are you in the mood for some cap numbers for Javon Hargrave?
I suck at math, but yeah, sure, go for it.
So his cap number for 23 is $6.6 million. His dead cap is 40 million. I don't think the Niners need to worry about that one because 2024, his cap number is 15.5. I feel like a pretty manageable cap number for a defensive tackle. His dead cap is 33.3. Now in 2025, that's where the contract gets interesting. Guaranteed salary goes down to 0. His cap number is 26.5. But his dead cap number is 18.6, which is savings of about $8 million. And then 2026, the last year of the contract, his cap number is 28.3. Dead cap number is 12.8, which is 15.5 difference for the Niners. So kind of as every contract in the NFL, it's a 2-year deal. And the Niners can easily have $8 million worth of saving in 2025 if they felt like Hargrave wasn't performing what they wanted. So there you go. There's the layout of the deal. Do you have any final thoughts on McGlinchey before we move on to kind of the, I don't want to say smaller signings, but the smaller signings?
Nah, man, get paid, Mike. Good for you, buddy. Yeah. And R. Davis 90 Gang says Frank Clark. I mean, I think he had a really good year this year, but I do think that the 49ers value people. And I'm not going to get into his past or anything like that, but he's done some problematic things. The Chiefs have done a great job of keeping him in line. But I just don't think that I would rather have Marcus Davenport if you're asking me. I would love to have that, bring back a Hughes, something like that as well too. But I just think that, when it comes to culture, when it comes to people in that building, I mean, the 49ers have shown you they're going to draft players that, can play football, but they're good people and they want to keep that going. So a far cry from how it used to be around here with the 49ers. So yeah, I mean, I just think that based on his age, he was fine this year. He wasn't like, he wasn't out of control. Like he played okay. And again, when you think about the depth and what he'd be asked to do, I'm sure he'd be fine. But I think it's about really about the character of the person.
Can we talk about how fast Jason Aponte's brain moves there? Because he just casually said, yeah, I'd rather have Marcus Davenport over Frank Clark. 5 minutes ago, Jason Aponte and his brain would have been like, Zach Allen. I'd rather have Zach Allen.
Yeah, his man. I wanted Zach Allen.
Already off of Zach Allen. He's like, I'm on to the next one. Let's do it.
Damn it, man. He's so good. Denver is killing it right now.
You talked me into him. I didn't know much about him, looked into him a little bit, and you talked me into him. Jason Aponte, smaller moves that happened for the Niners. We don't have to give it as much time. Touch on what you want. They signed Kevin Givens to a 1-year, $2.1 million deal. The big news from last night were a little late. To Sean Gibson, a 1-year, $2.9 million deal with the 49ers. And then Jake Brendel, Jason just touched on it a little bit. A quote-unquote healthy market is awaiting Brendel. Aaron Wilson reports the Niners, Texans, Browns, and Jets are in need for a center, and the 49ers and Texans are in on Brendel. And just so you know, DeMeco Ryans' his new offensive coordinator is Bobby Slowick, who has a pass with the 49ers, just like DeMeco Ryans. So those three moves, you got any thoughts, Jason, upon it?
Yeah, the Brendel thing, that's always kind of where my head was at. It's like so many offenses are going to be running Shanahan's offense. And when you look at what Brendel did, I mean, he's really one of the unsung heroes of last year. 20 games, 1 sack allowed in his first full year starting. He had 3 NFL games, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, before that with the Miami Dolphins. Paired him up with Chris Forrester, did a great job. He really loved him. And that is the type of market that you're going to get now, right? So the Texans are running that offense. The Falcons run that type of offense. Who are the other teams? The Giants. The Giants are looking for a center. That makes a lot of sense. And that's kind of where – and the Jets. And the Jets run that offense. So I always felt like, Brendel's going to have a bit of a market. And also, it did kind of feel like the plan was to draft Nick Zakelj and have him sit and then let him replace Brendel – in the next year, like let him sit for a year as well too. So I think Brendel's going to get a sizable deal, or he's going to get a lot of interest in that way. And I think the 49ers are fully prepared to move on with Zakelj. Again, Brunskill's right behind him. He can fill in if anything happens or if anything doesn't go right. So I love it. I mean, again, the 49ers, they found a way to put a Band-Aid on the center position, and it really turned out well. I mean, 20 games, 1 sack. That is impressive, man. Jake Brendel was one of the unsung heroes of last season.
Justina Anderson just tweeted some big breaking NFL news. Quarterback Jameis Winston just texted me that he's finalizing a deal to return to the Saints.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. I mean, look, RIP the Jameis Winston agenda, Yeah, it's
Doomsday.
fine. Look, I
It
don't
is
get
what it
Julio
is.
Jones when he was available. You don't get Jameis Winston when he's available. We don't get what we want over here on this podcast. It's just you just
I
got to be
wanted a
honest.
third string quarterback, and Jason
Mhm.
wanted a established wide receiver. We are not the same. Yeah, no. You bring it back to Brando because also the Jets. You mentioned the Jets. The Jets just lost McGovern earlier today. I forget where he signed, but I know I saw where he signed somewhere. Tashawn Gibson. I think that was the sign that I probably should have taken as well. They're not signing Jesse
Jesse
Bates,
Bates, no.
but that dream that I wouldn't call it a dream. I thought it was exciting. At least I would rather have Hargrave than Jesse Bates personally,
sure.
but I'm also a Niner fan. And then given just that depth, he's just been there. So really, none of these moves are shocking. We'll see what happens with Brendel and see what the center position has to deal with. But kind of straightforward so far. Kind of the last thoughts there on the Niners free agency. None of these moves can be made official until Wednesday at 1 p.m. when the new league year opens. There will be moves in between now and then. Using my brain and just common logic, I think the Niners would be in on some offensive linemen and some edge rushers, but that's just me. So we'll see. Obviously, things can change over the next 48 hours. And
You
who
sure?
the
Source
Niners,
didn't tell you that?
but hey, I just want to get these official because as a Giants fan now, I get nervous about physicals and all that stuff now. So 1 p.m. on Wednesday. Let's get here. Let's get Hargrave confirmed. Jason, I enjoyed doing it on Friday. We will close out with free agency news from around the league that kind of like has to do with the Niners. I did this list yesterday. So take it as you may. I haven't updated it, so I'm missing a lot of things, but this is what I had that relates to the Niners. The Rams traded Jalen Ramsey to the Dolphins in exchange for the 77th pick and Hunter Long. We touched on that for a second. The Commanders signed defensive tackle Deron Payne to a 4-year, $90 million extension. So I think that takes him off the Niners' plans next year.
Maybe.
I also wrote that before the Niners had Hargrave. So there's that. The Buccaneers are expected to be interested in quarterback Baker Mayfield. As I said, I wrote these notes last night. Sam Darnold was not a Niner last night, and I don't think that one matters. And then one that might be interesting, several teams say the Colts are shopping center Ryan Kelly, a 3-time Pro Bowler. So those are the quick things I had. Obviously, a lot has happened today. We mentioned the ones that really affected the 49ers, but it's exciting. It's exciting times, man. We'll see what the Niners add. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of other movements. So Jason, how excited are you for the next few days here?
There's a lot of names out there. Yannick Ngakoue. I mean, there's a lot of names out there for the 49ers to still do things with, still restructure, play around with again. So it's gotten a little silent now. I mean, there's still deals being done. Obviously, Zach Allen just happened, but for the 49ers, don't take their silence for them not moving at this point. Great first day, especially when you consider how loaded this roster already is. It's not like the 49ers had massive holes, but addressing this one and turning a question mark into an absolute strength is A++. And John Lynch, you're in your bag, pal. And the Sam Darnold thing was, again, my what the hell tweet wasn't about what it was because I knew what it was. It's just when Tim Kawakami is telling you they're not done, and then the notey comes across the 49ers and Sam Darnold got a deal done. I was like, wait, what the hell? That's not exactly like earth shattering, right? Like, no. So I think there's more to come. And I think that when you look around, there's still going to be other players that wind up getting cut. So that's another thing. Like around the league, there's difficult decisions that have to still be made right before Wednesday. You're going to see some players who can help. And I do think that the 49ers are an attractive place for guys who want to chase a ring on 1-year deals, who are still very productive, right? So like we saw Calais Campbell get cut today. I'm not saying the 49ers will go after him, but you're going to see more and more productive players pop out. So instead of just looking right now at who's remaining free agents, just kind of be aware that there's going to be other guys that pop out, and the 49ers are going to have to change their dynamic real quick if they identify a guy that can really help this team in the next year.
It's very exciting times. We'll see what they do. The Niners, I think they probably, even with the $6 million cap number for Hargrave, they're probably going to have to get to that zero because I think they're roughly at minus 3 million now. I think they're at 3 million last night after the Givens and the Gibson news. So they're going to have to get to that zero. So expect some more moves here and there. I think that's it. I think that's all we had today. I just saw news, Jason. I don't know what this means to you. I remember this website, and if I remember it, you remember it. Did
Jimmy
you know
Ward's
that?
gone.
What?
Jimmy Ward's gone.
Jimmy Ward.
Texans.
Oh, Texans got Jimmy Ward. Did that just break? See, this is
Yep.
why I wanted to stall. I was afraid we would kill the podcast before something like this happened, and I was going to mention that PIF getting shut down, the mixtape website. But now we got news to talk about, and the podcast is alive. Jimmy Ward to the Texans. Breaking news from Ian Rappaport. I don't think this one is shocking. It's Niner fans. I think it was pretty. I don't want to say pretty obvious that he was on his way out, because he was saying things like, hey, that this isn't done. People seem to think the Niners, I'm done with the Niners, but that's not the case. Ends up that is the case. Jimmy Ward going to the Houston Texans, and it's a loss for the defense, because now we can firmly say that they need to look for at least a slot cornerback at the bare minimum. They probably need to look for another cornerback as well if they don't bring back Emmanuel Mosley. So just throw this on the list of needs for the 49ers.
Yeah, and Jimmy kind of walked back some of the things that he said on his IG about, I never said that I didn't want to play nickel or anything like that. But yeah, the writing was on the wall. I mean, when you look at his age, this is his last chance to cash in, and it just felt like a natural thing. He's going to go back to safety. He's probably going to get safety money, which is more than nickel corner, and he's going to get to run with Jalen Petrie. I can't wait, man. The Texans back end. I was very high on Jalen Petrie coming out of Baylor last year. Very excited that Jimmy Ward's going to be there. D'Amico, trust him. He knows what he can do. I love this for him, man. Good luck to Jimmy. But Jimmy Ward's time with the 49ers is very, very is very roller coastery, right? Like, I don't think anybody, like, in the beginning, it's funny. When he first got here, he was miscast as a slot corner, and a lot of fans didn't like him because he was injured. And then he gets moved to safety, and he beats the injury bug, and everybody loves him. And I don't remember a player that's ever been able to change people's minds about them like Jimmy Ward, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like literally win over people that dislike Jimmy Ward. But I always knew what he could bring to the team. I always valued what he did. People would always point to the interceptions, which he got them in bunches last year because he was playing closer in the box and closer to the ball. But he was always safe. And I always said that sometimes the best play is the play that doesn't happen because he's so solid, so versatile, a hitter. And you know what else too? Ward is transformed into a really fun guy. You see the way that he's talking now in press conferences and everything after, and the way that he's kind of putting himself out there. I really think that's the last part of his story, but happy for Jimmy, man. And I'm sad that I'm not going to get to see him play anymore as a 49er, but good luck to him and D'Amico. They're going to do great things over there with Jalen Petrie too.
I think we can say it, and I just tweeted it. I think the Jim Harbaugh era is officially over, because I believe Jimmy Ward was the last.
The last bulky draft pick is Eric Armstead.
But that wasn't Jim Harbaugh.
I mean, it's the last bulky pick. I don't think so. I don't think it's the Harbaugh thing. The bulky pick. It's a bulky pick.
Okay, that's fair. Jimmy Ward is gone. We'll see what the Niners do. As I said, it's another need to fill for the 49ers. We'll see what he got from the Houston Texans as that information is slowly going to leak out. But hey, the Texans got a very versatile defensive back, and we'll see how they use him. As I said, I'd assume maybe more safety than slot cornerback, but we'll see what
he's a safety.
I think the contract will tell us that as well.
Right, and I think that's the thing and that was always his contention is, you move me from safety, slot corners don't get paid like safeties do, and he did what he did for the team. And again, team player, great guy, dog, absolutely loved him, man. Wasn't afraid, never shied away from any challenges, man. Love Jimmy Ward. Wish we would have been able to get him a ring, man. But good luck over there. Go kick ass with D'Amico.
All right, Jason, I think that's about it. We got 55 good minutes on free agency today.
You sure? We're gonna turn this off, and the 49ers are gonna sign Davenport and Arden Key.
That's why I want to not rush out, kind of be slow with it, because I almost closed the show and we would have missed Jimmy Ward by a minute. So, like, I don't know. Like, when are we supposed to end the podcast? Should I text? Should I DM Ian Rappaport and make sure, be like, hey, like, you don't have anything? Like, what are we doing?
I mean, he's a good friend of mine. I could just call him up right now and just be like, hey, stop.
Just call him.
Just stop. Just stop.
Just call him.
And just
Gotta
stop.
call him.
Yeah. I'm going to give him a call real quick, and
thank
I'm
you.
going to put the stop in. Yeah.
Can you call Silver too? See what he says.
Oh, Silver.
Schefter just tweeted.
Silver's going to want to go grab beers.
The Bills have restructured the contracts of quarterback Josh Allen and Von Miller, creating approximately $32 million in cap space. Axel, I see you. Hey, Andrew, guess what? What am I guessing? I'm not good at this. I might be. Wolves lost 2-1 yesterday. I don't want to talk about it. Well, I mean, I could talk about it. It wasn't great. It wasn't ideal. I like how Jason just knows now. So that's pretty cool. I'm kind of nervous to just kill the podcast. It's called baseball now. Yeah, dog. Team USA got embarrassed by Mexico. I was hoping they'd get 10 run. I don't know. Why are you yelling at me? My team's already in the round of 16. You gabba, you ghoul with the Italians, you know?
I'm not. Matter of fact, I got to check. I'm not as excited. Puerto Rico, they beat Nicaragua, and then they got smoked yesterday by Venezuela. They were playing Israel. They were winning earlier. So, I don't know, man. That pool, that's a pool of death. Puerto Rico, the Dominican Republic, and Venezuela, and only 2 teams move on. Like, who thought that was going to be smart, man? I really don't understand, man. So, but yeah, man, Mexico kind of put it to them.
Did you see the Korea-China final score?
Yeah, what was it, like 22?
22-2 in 5 innings.
Yeah.
World Baseball Classic here on the Spur Right Off Your podcast.
2 best players in the World Baseball Classic right now. Anthony Santander and Shohei Ohtani. It's easy, man. Santander has been doing it all. He's got 2 bombs, hit a triple, had a diving play against the DR. He's been showing out, and I'm not happy because he plays for the Baltimore Orioles. So way to go, Yankees! You got to keep dealing with that. And then Shohei Ohtani is just, oh my god, man. Nothing. All right, let's go.
Did you see the video of Shohei's home run ball and all the Japanese fans passing the ball around to take a picture of it, and then they just calmly gave it back to the person who caught it?
Yeah. I mean,
could you imagine?
It never would happen like that in America. People would have just been killing each other over
Yankee
that ball.
Stadium. Oh my God, they would have been booing that ball. You know?
Oh yeah, or throwing it back.
That was low. We're talking O's in the chat. We love it.
Right,
we love it.
Let's get out of here.
We have found Jason Aponte's line. When we start talking Orioles in the chat, Anthony Santander. We love it.
What a baller.
We love it.
Killing
We love it. Adley Rushman. You want to talk about Adley Rushman? Gunnar Henderson.
Oh God.
Yeah, Chris Davis. I don't think he's in Baltimore anymore.
No, he's not. He's not.
All right. Well, Rappaport or Schefter did not tweet any Niner news in the 5 minutes we just tried to kill there. I'm assuming we are safe. But boy, oh boy, I cannot wait for 5 minutes for the Niners to announce they signed an offer sheet to Lamar Jackson. So we'll see what happens. I don't know. Wednesday, maybe Wednesday. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
Friday, maybe to wrap it all up.
Yeah, Jason Aponte and I will keep you all up to date on when the next time we go live is. Grayson Rodriguez, as Wilson also mentions, on the Orioles. Jason Aponte, as always.
Let's go Niners. And this is a fun time right now, man. Free agency is the best.
Fun time to be an Orioles fan as well.
Christ, man.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome, everybody.
We are live.
My name is Jason Aponte.
I am Andrew Pasquini.
We're working. That's it. We're working over here. That's it. Let's go Niners.
Let's go Niners.